What an absolute privilege it was to watch that game. It's an understatement to say that this was an instant classic between Ole Miss and Georgia. I love a rematch. I love a high stakes rematch. It makes the hair on my arms stand up. It gives me chills just thinking about it. And man, this game delivered on all facets. And there's a theme that I always have on the show, and it's exactly this. It is always challenging to beat the same team twice in 1 year, and we saw it take place again here in this very scenario. We saw it take place with Alabama and Georgia in the SEC championship a few weeks ago. We saw it happen with Alabama and Oklahoma, and we saw it here again with Ole Miss and Georgia. When you're playing a team as good as Ole Miss, you're Georgia, you're playing a team as good as Ole Miss, as high caliber as Ole Miss. It's hard to beat that team 2 years in a row. It's one thing, if you're playing Kentucky twice in a year. No, you can. If you're Georgia, I expect you to beat them twice. But Ole Miss, a team as skilled, a team as talented and well coached as Ole Miss, yeah, that's a challenging feat. But man, what a gift it was to watch this one. Absolutely electrifying. You know what this game reminded me a lot of, and it's peculiar because it took place in the same venue. It was the same game. It reminded me of that 2015 Sugar Bowl between Alabama and Ohio State. Alabama was up 21-6 at halftime, and then Ohio State just catches fire and goes on this run in the second half. It absolutely explodes. That's exactly what this was for the Ole Miss Rebels tonight. First half, they got some things going, but they weren't exactly in a rhythm offensively. They produced some scoring, but it wasn't exactly in a rhythm. They only had 12 points to show. They were down 21-12, down by 9 points in the third quarter. And Trinidad Chambliss just completed a couple mind-blowing throws, beautiful NFL-level throws. And this offense just gets a jolt, just gets going, and never looks back. I mean, if you've watched Ole Miss all year long, you weren't surprised by a single thing that you saw tonight. This has been one of the best offenses in the nation all year long, and well, they just did their thing. And when you get an offense that explosive cooking, I don't even care. It's Georgia. Good luck stopping that. I mean, look at the performance that Harrison Wallace III had tonight. 9 receptions for 156 yards. Look at the game that DeJon Stribling had. 7 receptions, 122 receiving yards. And then a fall-off after that. I mean, Caden Lee had 19. Daquan Wright had 18. So a little fall-off after that. But, man, these boys were explosive in the pass game tonight. Trinidad Chambliss, who I think is one of the finest passers in the nation. I honestly think that it's him, Mendoza, Dante Moore, and everybody else. He was 30 for 46 today with 362 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Oh, forgive me, Julian Sayin, too. Can't forget Julian Sayin. He balled out today. And then Quan Lacey, who is a halfback that I don't think is talked about enough. I mean, this dude is dynamic. He's a powerful runner, and I do think he's a guy that can translate at the next level. 22 carries for 99 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. And so he definitely helped out with establishing the tempo, but this has been one of the best passing offenses in the nation all year long. And they just got hot, and they never looked back. Georgia. I mean, and this is the game here where the team with the better quarterback won. And at the end of the day, I think that the better team won this game. Now, I said in my preview for this game that I thought this was a different Georgia team playing Ole Miss than the team that we saw back in October. I thought that Georgia was much improved. I thought they found an identity both running the ball and on the defensive line and their pass rush. And they looked improved. They looked like a great team tonight. They just played an Ole Miss team that absolutely caught fire. And Gunnar Stockton went 18 for 31. 204 passing yards, 1 touchdown. Nate Frazier had 15 carries for 86 yards, 5.7 yards rushing. So he had a pretty efficient night running the ball tonight. Zachariah Branch, per usual, your leading receiver, 8 receptions, 67 yards. Love that dude. He's fast. He's explosive. I also think that he's a great route runner as well. He's definitely a guy that I'm looking at when it comes to the next level. I'm big on him. I'm big on Nate Frazier. Gunnar Stockton, I mean, I like him. I think he can be pedestrian at times, but when he gets hot and he finds a mismatch, he's good. But he wasn't finding that key mismatch like I felt like he was in that game back in October. That Georgia offense wasn't near as explosive as they were in that game or in the Tennessee game this year. They didn't really have that element, or like Alabama the second time around. And Ole Miss just did, and that was the difference. What's interesting is that both teams had an equal amount of first downs. Both teams had 23 first downs. Ole Miss was more efficient on third down. They're 5-14. Georgia was 3 for 13, and so that didn't really tip the scales too much. And both teams had 4 penalties. Time possession was pretty even. This game was just as even as it gets, and it was fun to watch. It was entertaining to watch. I got to take a little sip here. Got some Polar Dry. Excuse me, got the hiccups. Got some Polar Dry here, or Orange Dry. Love that shit. I can't get it in Texas. I can only get it here in Northern New York. I go home in 2 days, so I'm savoring that shit right now. But man, I'm happy for this Ole Miss program right now. For a program that has gone through so many trials and tribulations these past several weeks. I mean, it's felt like months, but it's only been weeks since Lane Kiffin announced his departure. And they announced Pete Golding as the next head coach. And all the drama that spawned from that. This team's ability to stay locked in on the end goal and on the task at hand is second to none. I'm going to tell you right now, that shit's hard. That shit is really hard. I mean, what Oregon was able to do today with both of their coordinators on the way out, just being completely laser focused on this game today, and then Ole Miss with all that internal drama going on, just being able to lock in and deliver an electric performance tonight. Their fans deserve that. I mean, Ole Miss has been waiting for a moment like this forever. They've been waiting for a CFP semifinal, for a national championship appearance, for a national championship forever. And I actually really do believe that this is a team that is capable of winning it all. I don't think that this is a fluke. I don't think that this is light and model at all. I think this team is perfectly capable. What I learned from this game here is that the same that holds true in the NFL holds true in college. More often than not, your teams with the best quarterbacks are the ones that advance. And with the exception of Miami, I really think that your 3 best quarterbacks, or your teams with the 3 best remaining quarterbacks, are the ones that are still standing. And I say it because Ohio State has Julian Sayin. So that's that. I think he's one of your top 3, top 4 quarterbacks in college football right now. But you've got Fernando Mendoza with Indiana. You've got Trinidad Chambliss with Ole Miss. I think those are your 2 best quarterbacks in college football right now. Then you've got Dante Moore in Oregon, Carson Beck in Miami. Now I'm not as high in Carson Beck as I am on a guy like Julian Sayin, so that's why Miami's the outlier. But Miami is such a complete put together team right now that's also what wins. If you can be dominant in the trenches and have a great quarterback, that's what wins you games at the level. And Ole Miss was generally pretty good in the trenches tonight. I mean, I've loved Ole Miss's defensive line all year. I'm a big Perkins guy, right? I mean, I've loved their defensive line all year. But man, Trinidad Chambliss is a difference maker, and he is one of those guys when he gets hot, when he rolls out of the pocket and starts getting creative, and he starts, you can see his confidence grow when he's on the field, when he's running around, and it was truly a gift to see that tonight. They were a little sluggish to start. They were kind of, like I said, they were in their groove yet, didn't have that rhythm going yet. But once they caught it, and that's what's scary when you look at this Miami matchup next round. And I think that game is going to be an incredible matchup. Miami cannot let Ole Miss get hot like that tonight, because if they get in that rhythm again, it's scary. And especially at this time of year, a team like that finding their groove, it's scary. And I didn't know what Ole Miss was going to look like in a game like Georgia, with that head coach matchup of Pete Golding going up against Kirby Smart. Well, they figured it out. I loved schemes on offense tonight. I thought they were creative. I thought they were effective. I thought Ole Miss was well prepared for this. I didn't know how prepared they were going to be for this game going into this. Just with everything going on internally. I mean, you've got a head coach who's coaching his second game ever. And like I said before, I'm an Alabama fan, so I remember Pete Golding as a defensive coordinator. So I was a little shaky when it came to my trust in Ole Miss here, but he really validated himself tonight. That was a hell of a head coach performance. It was a very well coached game on both sides of the ball. Georgia wouldn't expect anything less than what I saw tonight out of Kirby Smart. I mean, they were very well coached, very refined, very, very, very put together. Once Georgia had that scoop and score in the second quarter, I've seen it happen so many times at Georgia. I was like, oh boy, they're just gonna roll. I thought Ole Miss was gonna roll over, kind of just like Alabama did earlier today, but no, they had more resiliency than the Tide, and they hung in there. That belief in their team just really stood in the second half, and they got it going. They got in that rhythm, and that was that. What this game also illustrates too is once again, that bye is a killer. That bye week is a killer. I mean, even this year, we only had one team in these 4 games who had a bye win, and it was Indiana. And it's because they played against a very unprepared, unrefined Alabama team who's terrible at fundamentals. All the others lost. Ohio State, Texas Tech, Georgia. You get rusty. And you get a team like Ole Miss. They're hot. They're clicking. They just played a few weeks ago. And that's proving to be an advantage each and every single year now. And so I was excuse me. I was having some peanut M&Ms beforehand, so sometimes the candy shell gets lodged in my throat, excuse me. But yeah, I was thoroughly entertained tonight. That might be the best CFP game that I've witnessed yet this year. That was a lot of fun to watch. I mean, that fourth quarter was back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And I was just locked in here. I mean, I had one of my boys here sitting with me. I was sweating through a bet. It was intense. It was hot in this bitch. We were locked in. The intensity was escalating watching this game. We were both very invested in this thing. And went right down to the wire. I mean, I knew that when Georgia sunk that field goal with less than a minute to go. What was it? 57 seconds left. With the way that Ole Miss offense was cooking, I was like, that's more than enough for them to get down into range. Sure enough, they nailed it. I don't know if this game was ever going to come to an end. With those officials really, really dragged that shit on. And there were a couple PI calls on both sides that they did not call tonight. I mean, that official crew was not particularly fantastic tonight. I mean, there's a lot of missed calls tonight, and the way that they officiated the end of that game, which, I mean, you don't have to run an extra play with 1 second left. You're risking injury. It's only lateral bullshit. Just get the game over with at that point. But yeah, what a blessing it was to watch this one. A rematch of 2 elite SEC teams, and we're gonna be blessed with some more incredible football next week. You're gonna have that Peach Bowl between Indiana and Oregon, and that Fiesta Bowl next Thursday, just a week from today, between Ole Miss and Miami, and that's going to be a high-octane matchup. I'll be coming at you here in a few days with predictions for both of those matchups. That's another thing, y'all. I'm ashamed to admit this, but I went 0-4 with my picks. I don't think I've ever went 0-4 in a week before. I'm embarrassed. It's not a great way to start this year. If you want to come at me with your arrows, your burning torches, I get it. I get it. bring it on. I mean, I thought Ohio State over Miami was a good pick. I knew I took a risk with picking Alabama over Indiana. I could have seen it going either way. I had a lot of confidence in Tech over Oregon. And then I picked Georgia tonight. There's not a single pick I look back at, and I regret making it. I know. There's not a single pick I look back at, and I was like, man, what the hell was I thinking? Thought they're all really fundamentally sound picks. They just didn't pan out. But you know what? That's what this game is. We'll get them next week. Back to the drawing board. How do I respond? That's how I'll be defined as a picker. Let me know what y'all think about this game in the comment section below. What's your reaction? What's your opinion? Where do you think Ole Miss and Georgia go from here? I think Georgia will be just fine. They're still recruiting at a very high level. You've got the best coach in the game. Does it suck to go out in the quarterfinals 2 years in a row? Yeah. Optically, it doesn't look great. But this is one, don't fool yourself. This is one of the best programs in college football. They'll be back. Ole Miss, this is monumental. Because this is an inflection point for this team. Especially if you advance in other rounds, I was going to come play Ole Miss, and I didn't know how it was going to result with Lane Kiffin going and taking that LSU job. Was his team going to spiral downwards? Well, they're making a hell of a recruiting pitch right now. So let's see how they build on it. Let me know what y'all think about this game in the comment section below. Have a great night.